In this deeply personal milestone episode, I pull back the curtain on my journey as a podcast host, revealing how 24 conversations with courageous women have fundamentally changed me. What started as careful attention to names and pronouns took on new meaning after a transformative conversation with Dr. Nandi Marshall about the language we use and don't use to describe identity and community. From my initial use of the term BIPOC to my evolving understanding of how good intentions can still perpetuate othering, I shared the uncomfortable but essential work of being corrected, adjusted, and taught. With vulnerability and wisdom earned through real relationship, I explore what it means to make genuine space versus performative space, and why the courage to be wrong might be the most important courage of all. You're listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast, episode 25. To all the courageous women leading in public health, this podcast is your space to turn up the volume on your courage. This space centers your voice. This space celebrates your passion. This space amplifies your courage. My role? To listen, to amplify, and to stand with you in the fight for equity. My name is Dr. Kristi McClamroch. I am an epidemiologist, consultant, the founder and CEO of Courageous Public Health, and the host of the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Each week, I have real, unfiltered conversations with women doing the work of public health about the challenges you face, the power you hold, and your vision for the future. We talk about the authenticity, vulnerability, and courage that you bring, not just to public health, but to every part of your lives. Because courage is about action, even in fear. It's about taking up space, leading unapologetically, refusing to be erased, and knowing you never have to do it alone. If you're ready to turn up the volume on your courage, if you're ready to take up space, if you're ready to smash the racist, patriarchal, cisnormative, heteronormative, ableist, capitalistic systems, then let's dive into this brand new episode. Welcome back to the Courageous Public Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Kristi McClamroch, and this is episode 25. 25 episodes. That's an amazing milestone for me, and I'm really proud to say that this is what my courage created. My courage created this. So before I start, I want to introduce two new stuffed animals, not animals, but stuffed animals that I got since my first episode when I introduced you to a lavender bunny and my dancing frog and my rooster and my duck. So added to the crew that sit back behind me with my flowers are Bread and Ruler. So this is Bread. Gluten-free bread for me. Yes, with these like adorable little feet. And he's got some weight to him. He's actually heavy in the trunk area, laden down with these lavender beads. And Bread reminds me to push back against the patriarchal messages around women's bodies. So thank you, Bread. And then this is Ruler. Look at those adorable feet. If you can't see, Ruler and Bread both have adorable feet on them. Ruler is a nod to my math-loving dad. I have a nod to my mom back there, and so here's a nod to my dad as well. So, okay, glad to have introduced those two to you. Moving on. So when I started this podcast, I had this vision of highlighting courage in women of color who are doing the work of public health. So amplifying their voices and creating a platform for their stories. And you know what? I've been doing that. I've been living my vision. But what I didn't expect was how much these first 24 conversations would change me, and how much my guests would teach me not just about courage, but about respect and language and what it really means to make space for someone. So today, I want to take you behind the scenes, and I want to tell you about what happens before I hit record on every single interview. And I want to share how one conversation with Dr. Nandi Marshall completely shifted how I think about the language I use in the space I create. Because here's what I've learned. Making space for someone isn't just about giving them a platform. It's about how you invite them in, how you see them, and how willing you are to be changed by them. Okay, so let's pull back the curtain here. So with each guest, I allocate some time for us to spend together before we start recording the interview, just to get comfortable and kind of like settle into a groove. And this is particularly important for guests who I haven't met before. So my first question when we're kind of having this pre-interview time together, my first question is always, how do you say your name? Always. Even when I think it's obvious, even when I think I already know, even if they've told me in the past, I ask them to pronounce it because I want to get it right, because our names are part of our identities and how we want to be seen. And I've really been intentional about wanting to respect that. So first question, how do you pronounce your name? How do you say your name? And sometimes it's not what I thought it was going to be. So good thing I ask. And then my next question is always, what are your preferred pronouns? Which again, to me is about basic respect and attention and making space for the whole person. The third question I ask is, how would you like me to refer to your racial or ethnic identity? And you know what? My guests have given me a whole array of responses. So I'm so glad that I ask. People have said, a Black woman, an African-American woman, a Black African-American woman, a woman of color, a woman of South Asian descent, first-generation American, Muslim, a biracial woman, an Asian American, Afro-Latina, Haitian American. And, sometimes it's relevant during the interview and I'll say like, as a biracial woman, how do you blah, 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 blah. And sometimes it doesn't even come up, which is fine. But I want to respect my guest's identity, I don't want to make assumptions. No, assume, making an ass out of you and me. It's yes, I don't want to make assumptions. So during this pre-recorded time, I also tell my guests, I want you to be authentic. I want you to take up all the space. This is your time. Because I actually don't see taking up space as a zero-sum game. So I can take up all the space, all my space, and you can take up all of your space, all the space, and we can do that together. We can both take up all the space. And I want people to bring their authentic selves. I mean, they're welcome and encouraged to bring their authentic selves. They don't have to bring an edited down version that society or maybe their workplace has told them is acceptable. So it's funny, often my guests will say something like, bring me back if I go off on a tangent, don't let me go off on a tangent, or rein me in if I'm talking too much. And I always say the same thing. I will definitely not do that. It is not my job and it is not my place. And if you want to go off on a tangent, I will go there with you. And if you want to do a deep dive on something, I will dive with you because that's you in this moment. And I want to see you. And I always go back to a friend of mine who says, the intimacy is into me you see. And I actually want to create intimacy with my guests. I want to be able to see into them, and I want them to be able to see into me. So, sometimes the guests will also ask how long the interview should be. And I say, you know what? The interview will go as long as it goes, as long as we want it to go, and as long as it takes for us to have this authentic conversation, which is why if you've listened to multiple interviews, you'll notice that there is a range. Some of them are 25 minutes. Some of them are 60 minutes. It's like, bring it, bring what you've got. And it, it'll work itself out. So, I love that I, get to offer that. It's my podcast. And so, you can do it however, I have agency with that. It's fantastic. I love it. So, and I reassure my guests that when I send these interviews out to be edited, I always ask the team to take out like the ums and the ahs and my chronic cough, take out the cough, but don't take out any content. I never take out content. The content is the content. So, it's funny. I mean, sometimes when there are like flubs, I ask the editing team to leave them in. And so my favorite example of that now is when I was interviewing Tansy McNulty and a big truck drove past her house during the interview. And I heard this rumbling sound and I thought there was an earthquake because I'm in the Bay Area and that's where my brain went. And it was like, no, it's a giant truck that's rolling past her house that made this sound. And you know what? We kept that in because that's real life. Because sometimes giant trucks roll past our houses. Like sometimes, the kid needs a cookie or the dog needs to, be let outside or whatever it is. And that's authentic, real life. And that is also what I want to bring. So, I've tried to be really intentional about respect and authenticity in my interviews. And it turns out that I had a blind spot that I didn't see. Okay, so in episode 17, I interviewed Dr. Nandi Marshall. She is the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Georgia Southern University, and she is also the president-elect for the American Public Health Association. She is lovely. She is strong. She is outspoken, and she's a public health professional who I really, really greatly admire. And during our conversation, we started talking about identity and language. So I've been using the term BIPOC in my Courageous Public Health marketing materials. So BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And Nandi said something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, I completely hate the term BIPOC. It's always rubbed me the wrong way. She went on to explain that while she understood the intention behind it, she felt like it was still centering whiteness and lumping everyone together. She said, if we want to talk about Black and African American communities, then we say that. If we want to talk about Indigenous communities, then we say that. And then she said something that really kind of struck me like a lightning bolt. She said, we're doing the same thing we've been doing for centuries, which is centering whiteness. So I sat there listening and I felt this uncomfortable recognition wash over me. Because here I was being so careful about individual names and identities in my interviews, asking people how they want to be identified, being specific with each person. But in my marketing, I was doing exactly what she was talking about. So I thought about this for days, for weeks, honestly, after that interview, after that conversation. And then I realized something that really made me cringe. So I would never market a podcast as being for white women. I would just say women. But by saying BIPOC women, wasn't I inadvertently making white the default, whiteness as the default? And when I started researching this more, I found out that Nandi wasn't alone in this critique. So I found research that shows that BIPOC does a disservice to communities of color and efforts to dismantle systems of racial privilege. And I really appreciated this quote. The term amalgamates distinct experiences of racism and colonialism, which is exactly what Nandi was talking about, lumping people together. And here's what really struck me. The term BIPOC does not appear to have originated in the Black and Indigenous American communities, as it has been adopted much more widely among white Democrats than among people of color. And here I am, a white Democrat, adopting the term BIPOC. So it's a term that is, I think, meant to center these communities, but it doesn't actually come from these communities. I found stories of people having visceral reactions to the term. So one woman online was saying, as a Black woman, my body had a physical reaction. I froze, my stomach turned, and I got hot all at once, she said. Another woman said, I get irritated, not irritated, vexed when people refer to me as a person of color or BIPOC. Like, no, absolutely not. I'm Black. Don't play me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized Nandi was right. The term BIPOC, despite my good intentions, was still creating an us versus them dynamic, which is still othering. So after that conversation with her, I made a shift. I changed my marketing materials to talk about interviewing courageous women in public health, period. So here's the thing. After this, I brought this up with other guests, interested to see what their thoughts were. And some guests pointed out that it's still important for people to know that I'm intentionally centering racialized women, because if I just say women, am I being transparent about my intention? Am I making it clear that these are the voices I'm choosing to highlight? So I'm still figuring this out. The language around identity and community is complex and it's evolving. But here's what I can say. If someone comes across my podcast and they look at the list of women who I interview, they won't see any white women. But that's theirs to discover. So I'm not going to create this othering. I'm not going to create a special category which others people. I'm going to let the stories speak for themselves. Let the courage speak for itself. Because as I said, this is my podcast. And I'm going to interview the courageous women that I want to interview. And that's who you're going to hear. So yeah, what I love about that conversation with Nandi is that it taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn. And isn't that what real courage looks like? The willingness to be changed by someone else's truth. So looking back over these 24 conversations, I realize they're all connected. My obsession with getting names right, my insistence that guests take up all the space, and this lesson about not othering people even when you think you're celebrating them. It's all about the same thing. Seeing people fully, not honoring who they are, and making genuine space, not performative space. So every single one of the women I've interviewed so far has taught me something about courage. But more than that, they've taught me about my own blind spots and my own opportunities to grow, the courage to be corrected, the courage to adjust, the courage to admit when you get something wrong, even when your intentions are good. And another thing I think I've learned is that this work is ongoing. Like there's no moment when you arrive and you say, okay, I've figured it all out and I'm never going to make another mistake. It's about staying open to learning and staying willing to be uncomfortable when someone shows you a different way, a better way. So yeah, this podcast has really changed me. These 24 conversations have made me a different person than I was when I started. I'm still going to ask every guest how to pronounce their name correctly. And I'm still going to tell them to take up all the space that they want to take up. And I'm still going to follow them down any tangents that they want to explore. Like, let's go. I'm going to keep willing to be wrong, to be taught. I'm going to keep willing to adjust. Real relationship, real community, real change happens when we're courageous enough to let each other teach us and when we're willing to be human together. So thank you to every single guest who's trusted me with your story. Thank you for your patience with my learning process. And thank you, listeners, for being part of this journey with me. And you'll hear from me again on a solo episode for episode 50. I can't wait. Okay, until next time, stay courageous. Before you return to your day, take a minute to sign up for the weekly Courageous Public Health Podcast email updates so you never miss an episode. You can do that on our website at courageouspublichealth.com because there's so much more great stuff to come. Thank you for being here, and until our next episode, stay courageous. Thank you for listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Visit courageouspublichealth.com to find the show notes for each episode and learn how to connect with us.